Good morning, folks. I hope you're all well, and I hope the pressure of the world around us isn't getting to you with all the Christmas razzmatazz that is confronting us every moment. I've actually had quite a difficult week, but difficulties can do two things. They can either, occupy your mind and cause you to fear, or they can make you run to the Lord because He's the only one with answers. And it's been one of those sort of weeks with a lot of need presenting itself and a lot of personal feelings of inadequacy and how on earth can I help in this situation. But I have learned over the years there's just one place, and that's to run to the Lord. And He welcomes us. He says, call upon me in the day of trouble and I will answer you. And He does answer us, but we have to spend time to seek Him and to ask for His wisdom. I'm often comforted by old songs that I've learned in the past or have ministered to me in the past, and they come back at that moment in time. And two of those songs I'll just mention to you. One of them is one which says, where can I go? Where can I go? Seeking a refuge for my soul, needing a friend who'll love me to the end. Where can I go but to the Lord? And I heard that song one time when I was actually in Nigeria. I was at a big conference, and a very distinguished gentleman came and knelt at the front of the auditorium. And he just sang from his heart in the most amazing way. He sang those words, where can I go? Where can I go? Seeking a refuge for my soul, needing a friend who loved me to the end. Where can I go but to the Lord? And later on I heard his testimony. He was a diplomat and had been sent by the Nigerian government to some very obscure place which I'd never heard of, but it was a very, really hard place to go. His wife had gone with him, but just couldn't cope with it, couldn't cope with the trauma of the situation. And so she had gone back to Nigeria, and he was left completely on his own to finish this diplomatic agenda that he had. And that was his job. But he described how in the middle of this terrible situation with intense loneliness, with no one to turn to, he found himself singing those words, and he found himself just going to the Lord and receiving comfort, receiving strength, receiving help, receiving wisdom, and he made it through. But I've never forgotten that. I can't remember the man's name, but I can still see his face, and I can still see the urgency with which he spoke and encouraged all of us that that's the only place you can go when you're at your wit's end. And that's what I really want to say to you this morning. Many of you have faced, and perhaps even now are facing, what look like impossible situations. And you can either worry, fear, fret, rehearse the situation, or you can go to the Lord and say, I need your wisdom. I've written in the Word for the week, this week, about several people, Jesus included, who when he didn't know what to do, cried out to the Lord. It says of Jesus that he cried out with loud cries and tears to the God who heard him. And I think there are times when we don't cry out. And God in Jeremiah says, on two occasions he says, if you had called to me, I would have answered you, and I would have shown you amazing things that you don't know. I actually have to quote that verse more clearly than that. But he says this. He says, sorry, let me find my Bible. I'll put my glasses on. He says, call on me, and this is Jeremiah 33, verse 3. He says, call to me and I will answer you and I will tell you marvellous and wondrous things that you could never figure out on your own. And another song that has really blessed me is a Ruth Vazal song. And I knew that she wrote it when she had gone through a very, very difficult period in her life. Personal circumstances, but very difficult. And she wrote, Jesus, you are all I need. You're the very bread on which I feed. Your life gives life. You sustain my breath. Jesus, you are all I need. And it's a very wonderful song, and I found that coming back to me because there are situations which I do not know the answer to. I don't know how to pray. And I will not know unless I hear from heaven. I mean, many of you know that we have a grandson, Reuben, who has struggled for the last 5, more than that, years with epilepsy, with severe epilepsy. And then he goes through a period where he seems to be quite stable. You know, they have changes of drugs. And then he gets really unstable again. And he's in an unstable period at this moment. And it's an agony. It's an agony for him. He is remarkably brave, and he is seeking the Lord. And he is turning to God for comfort. But for a 21-year-old to be living with the trauma that he lives with, it's not God's best, and we know that. And so we're crying out, Lord, for answers. What is the key to this situation? I wrote about Daniel and how that, he was called, it was life and death. It was, if you don't find the answer to this dream that Nebuchadnezzar has had, then really that's it for you and your colleagues. They'll be killed. And he cries out to God in this situation, and God answers him in a vision and gives him both the dream and the interpretation, and their lives are saved. But it's interesting that he says to his colleagues, plead for mercy. And God tells us as his children, to come boldly before the throne of grace and ask for mercy to find help in our time of need. And it's all of the same essence, that whenever we have come to the end of any human resources, in fact, ideally before we get to the end of them, we go to the Lord and we seek to find out what his mind and his perspective is on this situation, because it's the only place where we'll find peace, and it's the only place where we'll find supernatural resources. And I believe that's how Jesus lived his life. It wasn't a showy thing. It wasn't. It was an instinctive thing that was going on all the time. I remember when Lazarus died, and he obviously was very upset, and Lazarus was his friend. The house where Lazarus lived had been a place of refuge for him, and suddenly Lazarus has died. And to the disciples' surprise, he doesn't go there straight away. I mean, I probably would have done, knee-jerk reaction, get there and blah on and do your own thing and seek to help. But actually Jesus was wiser than that. He just went to Father and said, what do I do? And I just want to encourage you, whatever you are up against, God has an answer, but we have to seek and find, and we have to knock and keep on knocking and seek on, keep on seeking until we get some answers. But I know that God will give us answers, and I know he will also give us a new sense, a reverential sense of just who he is and how strong and mighty he is, and how he will prevail in every situation. There's a lovely scripture in Isaiah 43 that says, when you pass through the waters, I will be with you. They will not overwhelm you. And when you pass through the fire, you will not be burned. And the flames will not consume you. And sometimes we feel as if we're drowning, and we feel as if we're in the midst of fire. But if we go to the Lord and cry out to him, he will not only calm us down and bring us into a place of peace, but he will speak and show us what to do. And it says of Jesus that he was heard because of his reverential submission. And I believe that when we do hear from heaven and we actually obediently put into practice the things that God has revealed to us, then we will see signs and wonders and miracles. So I want to encourage you, just go back to the basics. Humble yourself. I do not know what to do in this situation, but I know you do, Lord, and you will help me. I know you will help me. Use your spiritual gifts. Use your tongues. Sometimes I just do not know how to pray, so I just launch off into tongues until I actually get some answers. And I'm in the midst of seeking, knocking, and keeping on knocking, particularly in relation to our grandson, but in relation to an awful lot of other very, very serious situations. So be encouraged. Where can I go but to the Lord?